All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Reactionary Opinions, the most based and reactionary show on the African continent. You're going to see me any moment now. Coming up soon. There we go. And we're live. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. Boy, oh boy, we have a fantastic show for you this evening. My good old mate, Scott Tungay, is waiting in the waiting area. You see, we're so professional over here. We have waiting areas, but I'm going to bring him on in just a couple of seconds. But thank you for everyone for tuning in. Hang on a sec there. Let's see if we can get Scott over here. There's my main man. How you doing there, Scott?
It's good to be on, man.
How'd you like the intro, huh? Not bad.
Dude, I was headbanging. That heavy rock was heart-rousing.
Yeah, it is pretty sweet. I worked really hard on it, and but it's sorted out now. I'm kidding. It's really easy to do on StreamYard.
Well, I'm neo-Amish, so I may hire your professional services to become more super sweet. How you doing, bro?
I'm good, man. I'm good. How are you? That's a beautiful Last Supper behind you over there.
Thank you. The Lord himself watches over my shoulder and tells me based tweets.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. As long as Judas isn't in the...
Yeah, he's a reminder to us all not to be too...
unbased.
Liberal normie clown.
Anyway, guys, it's going to be a great chat this evening. What we're going to be talking about, I've been watching Scott's streams. If you haven't seen his channel, go over and have a look at it. He streams pretty much every day except weekends, right, Scott?
Yeah. So Monday to Friday or Monday to Thursday and a Saturday. So 5 days a week except Sundays.
Cool. Was supposed to be on Saturday of the stream. Oh yeah, I must apologize. Or actually, Scott's cable company needs to apologize because
Clown world.
First world problems, I guess. Huh?
Yeah.
So anyway, myself and Scott were sort of pondering what we're going to talk about, and I think the trend at the moment is, to sort of avoid and understand and how to spot normies and NPCs and all around clowns, and how to avoid them, because guess what, guys, they're not healthy for you. They really aren't. So before we jump into the details of this thing, Scott, what would you define as a normie?
Yeah, I think having a long history of being a normie myself, I can talk from firsthand experience. A normie is someone who follows the cultural norms of the most powerful institution in their life. So, for us, that happens to be the media or the education system, or mostly the media and the education system, and then obviously big corporate HR, if you're working for a big corporate or whatever. But whoever the most powerful institution in your life is, you follow those cultural norms that they set out in fear of rejection, in fear of reprisal, in fear of social assassination, economic assassination. And so if they say, up is down or blue is green, then you're like, yes, that's fine. Even though I don't believe in it, I will follow the cultural norms for fear of my life, or for fear of, repercussions that come from going against the cultural norms. So that's a normie.
Mm-hmm. So sort of, again, it's almost a they basically settle for coercion, basically without any friction or without any counter.
No confrontation or conflict.
No, and that's very important, because as men, confrontation and conflict should be like, we should love it. Like, what happened? Since when do men not like confrontation and conflict?
And I think that's our upbringing, in this liberal, because I think, you're a few years ahead of me, but we would have had a very similar liberal, English liberal upbringing. And our school system, you look at how it's predominantly women teachers, and ladies are. If you look at like, I'm not into evolution. I'm a staunch creationist here. But if you look into the what do you call it? Evolutionary psychology of the woman. They are they for them, being rejected from the group is death. Being rejected from the tribe is certain death, because you need men to protect you from wild animals, from other tribes, and you need men to provide in a harsh environment where you can't just go to the store and get food. That's the psychology in our grug brain, is rejection equals death. And so women bring that energy. They're so security minded, they're so safety minded, and it's a wonderful thing, because you have children, and like, actually the mother freaking the heck out about everything is good, because the child is going to live to adulthood. But now you make those women in charge of a bunch of boys, and what is the purpose of a boy? It's to learn how to be dangerous, so that we can protect the tribe, so that we can provide for the tribe, so that we can be men. You cannot be a powerful man, a strong man, without the ability to be dangerous. So you put all these women in control of us little guys, and it's you're ADHD because you're in a cubicle for 12 years of your life. And you, hey, can I please go to the bathroom? And you're basically drugged to be able to live a girl life for 12 years. And so you get to 18 years old, and we hate confrontation, because every time we confront, we are punished, and drugged or detained, or, whatever the case is. And we don't learn that healthy punch in the face. And, to my shame, I was never in a fight. My whole, thankfully I played rugby, which was kind of the only blood sport in my life. But, there was no confrontation between dudes of like, hey man, you're fat and I hate you and you smell. And it's like, oh, I'm going to punch you. Like, there was none of that. Like, because we knew, like, you're going to get suspended, or you're going to get all the stuff. And maybe we're just plain scared because, we're all a bunch of mama's boys who were raised with safety first.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's a very, very, very true analogy. Unlike how I was. I mean, look, I when did you finish school, Scott? What year?
2008.
Okay, I finished 2000, and when I was, so I was at school in the 80s and 90s and stuff, and so sort of late 80s and 90s, and back then we had teachers. I remember I had an Afrikaans teacher that told me he's going to clap the English out of me. Like, like that. That's how the Oaks dealt with things. And there was every single break time. There was always a rule. There was always a Barney. There was always someone causing crap with the other guy. But yeah, the idea that men now all of a sudden don't like conflict and stuff, I think that is a primary indicator of a flaking, weak, decaying normie society. And I think that is also a prime example of how to spot a normie as well.
Yeah.
If they are not defensive, and they are not they're just sort of like, you say something to them and they're like, yeah, okay, fine. I'm like, no, bro. Like, that's you have to be, for lack of a better boundaries. Yeah, you have to be, for lack of a better word, like my mother always used to tell me, I'm an outright shit stirrer. Like, that's what I am. I'm the guy that says what everyone thinks.
Yeah. And
that's how I guess that's how men are supposed to be, and not be normal. But anyway,
sorry, just to finish on that point there that you're saying of like men, what is the role of a man in, and this is where we get straight to our based worldview, because we grew up in this egalitarian feminist, the feminine imperative ruling our society. The purpose of a man is authority. If you look at the husband role, if you look at the father role, if you look at, if you're a true egalitarian, you're like, well, the woman can do everything the man can do. The wife can be the husband. She can be the leader of the home. The wife, the mother can be the father. She can be the authority of the home. the wife can be the boss babe, the wife can be the policeman, the wife can be the pastor, the woman can be the pastor. And so all of these authority systems, these patriarchal authority systems, are now very clearly matriarchal. And not only matriarchal explicitly of women actually having them, but also subversively matriarchal. So let's say we go to a church and it's a male pastor, but he takes his marching orders from the upset woman in the church. So if Scott comes along here and he starts saying, "Hey guys, like I don't think insert borderline normie opinion that just leans towards the Bible." Then you get all these ladies who are like,
we need to continue locking down the churches and wearing masks and social distancing because, we got to save lives.
Yeah. And so, of course, the upset woman, so especially the English culture, we are like, we fear the upset woman. And so we're like, okay, just don't be upset. Just don't throw a fit. Like, we'll do the thing. We'll lock everyone down. We'll stop the church.
It's that old saying, happy wife, happy life. That's a real thing.
That's a heresy. Let me tell you.
We say it as a joke now, though. We say it as it's half. It's made in jest.
Yeah,
we'll say, like I'll say happy wife, happy life. Like, yeah.
But I mean, that's it. It's like it's this whole thing, though. So these there's these unhappy wives run the pastor, run the politician, run the whatever, the HR department. And so what happens is, like we said, the instinct of the feminine is safety and security and conformity to the group. And so that your church ends up, safety first. Your school ends up safety first. Your business and corporate business or whatever it is, safety first. And then the next thing, how do women kick each other out of a group? It's not through overt confrontation. It's through what do you call it? Gossip and slander and politicking. My wife and I, we love watching Survivor, the TV show, because it's all about politics. It's basically the tyranny of democracy. That's what it's the news media and democracy in a 30-man island experience.
Micro democracy.
Yeah. But what happens is you start slandering the other ladies to the men who have the sword or who and it's like, oh my gosh, if someone slanders me, then I'm out. I'm out of the group. I die alone.
The tribe is broken.
Yeah, and so they become super sensitive. This is called political correctness. You become super sensitive to whoever the main matriarch is. If she is upset with you, you die. And so, okay, what does she want? How do we please her? That's political correctness. And that becomes the HR department, that becomes the church eldership, that becomes the school board, that becomes the media newsroom. It's like, it becomes this thing of like, because that's what happens to us. Like, well, we're going to dox you, we're going to get you fired from your employer, or we're going to, shame you to your church, or shame you to your, it's like, for you and I, we've ridden through this paper wall of social rejection and social ego death, and have come out on, we've risen from the grave on the other side, metaphorically, to a new life. But it's like, before you ever hit that paper wall, like, it was terrifying. I would be sleepless nights if a tweet offended someone, or some person was angry with me or whatever, and it's like, oh my gosh, that's how feminized we were in our upbringing.
And that's interesting that you mentioned that that becomes the HR, that becomes the school, that becomes the church, so basically it becomes all of our institutions, and that's the scary part. That's the terrifying part, because we are very little without our institutions.
Yeah.
And this is the point is. And a lot of people rag on institutions and that sort of thing, but I'm a firm believer of institutions as a way to preserve community and keep communities together.
We are institutional beings.
Yeah, exactly. We are. It's naturally observable in our day-to-day interactions. But the thing is the feminization of these institutions is a massive part of why we're in this trouble. Why there's this rampant normalcy all over the place. I just want to jump into the comments here. I'm not gonna read all the comments and stuff. I see Eleutheria. Hey Beth, long time no hear. I'm so glad that you're here. She says she has 2 sons that I homeschool. The older one is a lot softer. The younger one is aggressive. They got boxing gloves and bags. Well, she said, made the older one stand up for himself and the outlet for the younger one. Brilliant. Well done there. Well done, Beth. Yeah, Beth's a lovely lady. I haven't seen you in a while, Beth. I know that you like social media, taking a break and all that sort of stuff, which is based. That's good. I like that. I'm honestly considering. I'll be honest. I'll take the knock. I'm a little bit of a social media addict. And I keep it around. Yeah. I need to go to social
anonymous,
social media anonymous meetings or something. But yeah, so this is something that we mentioned when we were chatting before we went live, Scott. The idea of so we've gone over what a normie is and all of that. But what I want to talk about is how we go about spotting a normie and that sort of thing. And you and me were talking about how you kind of in the conversation and there's that moment where you click and you're like, okay, this person's a normie, or okay, this is one of my mates. So like, I mean, you want to just sort of run us through that?
Yeah, I think for a lot of us, we in our normal lives, whether you're at a workplace or in the church, that's the hardest one, is in the church, because you want to be part of a church, but it's so hard to find really masculine energy leadership in churches. And so a lot of times you're like, man, like this church is saying some good things, I'm sure for this is for the Protestants, Roman Catholics and the Orthodox bros have it a lot easier, I think. But even there, there's a lot of liberalism and feminism just that is just a presupposition of any communal gathering. But so, you'll just fly under the radar because you don't want to arrive with a swastika armband, and just be like, all right, it's just all out, and because that's it, you realize, in real, you can do that online. We can be shock jocks, we can be a bit offensive and have fun and shoot the ball with our friends and trigger the libs and all that kind of stuff, and that's fun. But in your real world church, your real world local economy, your real world family, your real world, whatever institutional friendships you've made, you have to live with these people for the rest of your life, perhaps. And you have to interact with these people for the rest of your life. And you have differences of opinion that are almost murderous in the extent of, the strength of the opinion. So for instance, the lockdown people are happy. They won't do it. They won't pull the trigger themselves, but they're happy for the government to murder non-lockdowners or non-vaccinators or non-maskers. Like they have murder in their hearts towards people like that. And so in your interactions, your one-on-one interactions, we try and feel this out, of like, you'll drop little hints of things of like, how is he going to react to, oh, what did you think of the sermon? And someone will be like, oh, I love the sermon, just how he said women can be everything they desire. And you're like, okay, not our guy, But if he's like, yeah, I don't know, like, yeah, I didn't enjoy the sermon today. It's like, okay, like, let's push let's drop something else, and we've almost got to, like, it's like you said earlier of like the secret, in Roman times, the secret Christians of like, how do we identify each other and not get crucified? And the mafia guys, they have their whole way of identifying each other so that they don't get shot or be in the wrong territory. And it feels very much that way for us.
Yeah, that's so true. Like it's easy, and it's interesting that you mentioned that because, from my journey from norminess to basedness, I started this almost, and social media helped in a big way. I started this almost sort of alter ego online, and you'd start triggering people and that sort of thing, and and then what you do is you start this little online community of guys who think the same way as you, but the difference is, now this is the ringer, okay, is some oaks are just like, I'm an eternal troll, like I just want to eternally troll people and stuff. Like I don't get any joy out of that. It's whatever, there's a limit to it, so I want to connect with these people in a real way, okay? And that's why a vast majority of my friends that I have now, because obviously I've cut ties with a lot of my friends from the past, a lot of the friends that I have now are friends that I met in that circle that kind of gave me signs, that internet circle gave me signs, like you were saying, of like, hey, I'm one of your guys, or whatever it is, and held up the finger like the ancient Christians in Rome. You know what I mean?
3 times if you think that sermon was not based.
Exactly. And a lot of them are good friends now. Like I mean, not on an internet way, in an actual personal way that we hang out.
You've actually made real life friends from internet connections.
Exactly. And it all came from figuring out and avoiding norminess, because it's once you start figuring out, okay, these are not really the type of oaks that I want to have around myself, my family, my daughter, and all of these sort of things. Now I need to go on my own journey now to go and find other people, because you can't this nonsense that you can just be like sort of a drifter and that sort of thing, There was only one John the Baptist, you know what I mean? We can't all be John the Baptists, you know what I mean?
We have to build something.
Yes, we have to build something. And how do you go about that? You build your community, you build relationships, and you build real relationships with real people.
And I think that's why I liken it to a salvation experience. I grew up agnostic and I only got saved when I was a teenager. But they would harp on and on and on of like, you leave your old friends and you come and make church friends. You leave your old friends, you come and make church friends. And it's like, why? And it's like, disciple. Keep hanging with your old friends, you're going to go back to your old life. If you make new friends who are all going in the same direction, you're going to go there a lot quicker. And so we almost have like a second conversion experience, if you want to call it that, when we realize, because we get saved, we become good Christian boys, but it's all within this liberal humanistic framework, this enlightenment framework. And so maybe like whatever the little chip is that starts eroding that framework, and you start to realize, oh my gosh, this is clown world. Everything I was ever told in school, even in church, is a lie. On the news, the media, it's all a lie. It's all a liberal humanistic religion that they're pushing, a worldview that they're pushing on us. And so we have this conversion experience of like seeing it for what it is for the first time in our life, of seeing, oh my gosh, it's all a lie. And then you go, well, what is the truth? There's now a biblical based worldview, of I'm going to try and find God's number one common grace, the common things in nature that he has designed that you don't even have to be a Christian to understand, but it's natural law. It's common grace that even unsaved people can tell you a woman is not going to be a good cop. You don't have to be a Christian to understand that.
The Logos.
It's the Logos. There you go. And then second of all is God's revealed ways, his ways of living. And there are express instructions in the word, just for instance, the express instructions of how to be a man, of how to be a father, how to be a husband, and the authorities the duties that you are required to pick up. And you're like, whoa, the world doesn't agree with these duties. The world doesn't agree with these authorities. And so it's like a salvation experience of like, okay, I'm a new man. I will not operate in that old way. I will not return to that old way. But then there's no church to run to. There's no Wednesday evening based study and Friday evening based prayer and Sunday based gathering. Like, there is none of that. You still go to a pretty liberal church, to a pretty surrounded by normies. You
Meme
still
study meetings instead of.
And so, I liken it to that of like, okay, so we go online, and we're like, does anyone else believe what I believe? And it's like, yes, there's 7,000 other men who have not bowed the knee or kissed the ring of Baal. And you're like, whoa, 7,000, this is amazing. And I'm not alone. And that is my biggest despair on this road of, the last 10 years, whatever it is, of just this road that we've walked on out of liberal individualism, liberal humanism, into Christos, logos, Christ-centric basedness, reactionism, whatever you want to call it, traditionalism. There are incredible moments of low lows where you're like, it is Elijah in the cave of like, God, am I the only one? And they're trying to kill me because, your old friends do try to kill you socially, economically, honor, you're shame. Scott, you are such a nice person. Now shame on you, shame on all this stuff. And it's like, I can imagine people saying that to new Christians. I can imagine people saying that to people who are leaving the normal plantation. We're no longer slaves to being a normie, and it's convicting. Either you and me are right, and we're we have to go with the new guys who have found a new way, or we have to reject them to stay comfortable in our old world. And that's what happens when people become Christians. You become a Christian. Well, I stop swearing. I stop getting drunk. I stop sleeping around. I stop lying. I stop cheating. All this behavior change. And your old friends are like, whoa, dude, either it means you want me to change, or you're right and I should want to change. So either way, I'm either going to come with you or I'm going to reject you. But there's no middle ground. And it's exactly that way with a political worldview. Once you go out of the normie cultural window, there is no middle ground. It's reject or go with.
Yeah, it's true that, because everyone has some sort of skin in the game, and there comes a time, and it's difficult. It's not easy, because it comes a time when you have to cut that skin in the game. You know what I mean? And this is, and I laughed at that part where you said your friend said, "Oh, Scott, you used to be such a nice guy," and stuff. Like, I literally have like atheist guys and stuff that I know saying things like when I'll say something, they'll say, "Well, that's not a good Christian way of saying things," And I'm like, "Well, how would you know? Like,
yeah.
What makes you an expert? You know what I mean? Like, this is just the thing, because they have this idea of a Christian being the normie." Like I call it a G chord Christian. You know what I mean? Like the standard chord on a guitar is the G chord, and like that. You know what I mean? Like that's the guy that always walks around with his guitar and has this like really big smile and everything's so good, guys.
Hey, can I take your car? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, exactly. Like that guy. I think that's their idea of
a walkover, a doormat Christian.
Yeah, I mean, but again, that's the normie,
the feminized Christian.
Yeah, the feminized sort of modern idea of what a Christian is. Gone are the days of Saint Boniface, who went and chopped down a tree that the pagans were worshipping under, and said, stop this nonsense and like end it now. Like no, like, please guys, do you mind if I sing you a song? And we'd like,
No, Scott, actually we have to become like them to reach them.
Exactly.
Let's become like them.
But
I think what you were saying there, Scott, is so important as well, of like, it's not just staying online then. I think it's so encouraging. Like, I've been so blessed by social media. I've been so encouraged to know that I'm not alone, that there's 7,000 other men out there. And then, like you say, it's that incredible moment of, I'm sure it's, exactly what people must feel like, of like, I'm meeting a real Christian for the first time. Like, oh my gosh, and that was it. When I first got saved, like, you were just so pumped to meet another Christian. Oh my gosh, there's a Christian on the rugby team. Oh my gosh, there's a Christian in my class. Like, we're best friends now, because you're not alone anymore. And two do not easily falter. When one is down, the other picks them up. And so it's incredibly powerful, this thing of actually having a phone call with a guy and hearing his real voice, and then, oh my gosh, actually going over and having a braai, having a barbecue with a guy and being like, we now know each other. We know where each other live. We know what each other's families are all about. We know where we work. Like, there's trust. There's like, oh my gosh, like, we're ride or die. Like, dude, I know you, if you ever get attacked by the mob, like, I'm here for you, bro. Like, anything you need. And it's like, whoa, like, you literally don't need, so many guys are like, we need, in South Africa, it's like, we need, 10 million people to, before we can have institutional power. And in America, it's like, we need 80 million people before we can have institutional power. And it's like, you need 3 or 4 dudes to have institutional power. 3 or 4 guys who are ride or die, who won't throw each other under the bus, who can affirm each other's convictions, who can pick each other up when we're down, you can survive almost any fallout with 3 or 4 brothers who are not going to throw you under the bus. And it's like that institutional power.
Yeah, absolutely. That's, and it's interesting that you mentioned that, that you're not alone and there's all these guys, all these based guys out there. And, I read a very cool article that Ernst van Sale wrote, or Conscious Caracal wrote, about basically that not everyone is liberal. The idea that that the media puts out there, and that that normies will also put out there, is that you are alone. Like, it's just you. You're the only crazy nutto conspiracy theory guy out there who's who's spouting these radical, weird ideas and stuff. And it's
classic propaganda.
Yeah, it's absolute propaganda. And once you start sort of scratching below the surface and actually looking to start your own little group and your own community and all of that, since the beginning of this year, Scott, I got involved in my church's youth group, and it's been such an eye opener. Okay, because yes, I do see a lot of liberalism and stuff creeping in there amongst like the youth leaders as I am, and but the kids, bro. The kids are based.
Dude, I don't know what it is. It's the same thing here, man. I'm involved with the youth, and it's like, where are these kids getting it? It's like, is this God? God, have you made an update or a download for Gen Z? This is based. Like, full on, man. I see exactly what you're seeing.
Don't let anyone ever tell you that that the youngins are like
lost
and like lost or whatever it is. You just need to scratch below the surface just a teeny bit, bro, and you will see how based these kids actually are. I mean, my brother's a teacher, okay, and he sends me screenshots of stuff that these kids write. Bro, it is based, like proper based. Like, if I was 16 years old and was that based, I would be freaking Goliath today, bro.
Exactly, man. That's what I say all the time. Is like, man, I'm so pumped because, like, dude, we were out playing like frisbee or I don't know, whatever it was out in the field. And one of the kids shouts like, repeal the 19th. And I was like, you're 16 years old. How do you know about women's suffrage and repealing women's suffrage? All the kids are playing and I'm like down on my knees giving thanks to the Lord,
Yeah, brilliant, man. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah, but it was, it's something that I'd always wanted to get involved in, was the youth and stuff, because I always had an inkling. I always had I had an idea that and like, this is an ultimate white pill, is, there's a lot of black pilling going out there and like saying, oh yeah, the youth are doomed and they just, but I honestly, I do think that, but the task is going to be very hard, okay, because if you think we faced propaganda growing up, the propaganda that these kids face now is like
military grade.
Like yeah, it's mutant level propaganda. This is like the Chernobyl of propaganda. It really, really is hard. out there for these
Yeah.
kids. And I think that's where us as grown adult men come in, and
Providing a positive vision for them.
Yeah, absolutely, because all they're seeing around them is negativity, blackpilling, and all this bizarre stuff. That's what our job is. That's what we're doing right now, essentially, is saying to the oaks, hey, it's okay, come out, do your thing.
Yep. And this is why also it's important, Scott, this whole thing of, while we're on this topic of normies, of like, I used to hate the normies. Like, I had such an anger and a hatred, of like, I think I felt betrayed. I felt, why aren't guys I've known my whole life sticking up for me? Why weren't they ride or die? Why aren't they coming with me? Why aren't they seeing the light? And, number one, it's this incredible sense of rejection, of disappointment. And then it kind of turns to anger. And I think for me now, like I've really, once you understand that God has made us to be institutional beings, to respect authority, to wield authority, to build towards institutions, to wield institutions with righteousness, because that was our libertarian phase, right? We then get sucked into libertarianism out of disappointment, because all the institutions, all the authorities are wielded by wicked men, or weak men, or women. And so what's the natural response is to run to libertarianism or anarchism and be like, statism is bad, authority systems are bad, individualism. And then you kind of come to this place of reading the Bible a whole bunch, and you're like, okay, wow, authority is mandated by God. It's just that righteous men need to wield authority. Righteous men need to wield the sword. Righteous men need to wear the crown. Righteous men need to set the cultural norms in the institution that the normies all follow. And when you rightly understand that, you're like, wow, I can't hate the normies anymore. They are literally doing what they were designed to do, which is follow, which is honor and obey authority. And that's it's a remarkable and honorable thing. It's on us, the guys who can see. It's on us to challenge the clowns who are in authority, the wicked men who are in authority, because it's like, there's no point in, I liken it to drones. And a lot of people are like, Scott, this is dehumanizing. That whole NPC meme, the non-player character, that gray head with like just slit eyes. Like, Scott, this is dehumanizing. You're calling people drones and they can't think for themselves. And it's like, no, like once you see things for what they are, you stop hating them. You stop attacking them. You stop wasting your time on them. Go for the center. You go for, our battle is not flesh and blood. Our battle is not to go and murder normies. Our battle is against clowns in institutional high places. It's against the men that are wearing the crown and bearing the sword for wickedness. And so when you see that, you're like, okay, I don't have to hate all these people, and it rids you of this incredible anger, and you can forgive. Like, Lord, I forgive all these normies, who have hurt me in the past or disappointed me in the past. I forgive all the men who never had loyalty. I forgive all the men who didn't think for themselves or have courage. I forgive all the cowards or whatever. Whatever like past trauma and hurt that we have to work through. But then you come to the other side and you're like, okay, like, God willing, I will build all the authority systems I can. God willing, I will take on all the authority I can. And the normies under me, I will protect them, and I will lead them in the way that God has called us to live in, so that they can be normies in a institution that cares for them and that leads them towards the hard things of God, not the soft things of cultural degeneracy and all of that stuff. So it's really important to not hate the normies.
Yeah, I think that's 100% true. It's basically they are forgiven for they know not what they do, pretty much. It's if you are if you basically become red pilled to the whole entire situation and you continue your normie nonsense, then it becomes a little bit difficult, because then you're just trying to be.
There's accountability involved now.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, it's the they're forgiven because they really don't know.
And I think that's the difference between a normie and a clown. A normie, he does not know. It's just like, he's petrified. He's living in the institution, and he will do what he's told. A clown is someone who is maliciously trying to destroy God's authority systems, destroy patriarchy, destroy family, destroy morality, destroy community, anything that stands in the path of them leading people to degeneracy, leading them away from God. That's a clown, someone who is maliciously hates God, hates patriarchy, hates the father rule, hates, all that is logos and wholesome. That is then, you now are actively accountable and you're a clown.
Yeah, exactly. Because you just carry on being malicious and stuff. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I just want to, guys, I don't see many comments in the thing. I think this is a bit of a slow stream, whatever.
Hey, one of my boys is on, Rob.
Is that one of your guys, Rob? Good afternoon, gents. Hi, Rob. And I got my dad, my old man over here. He says, you got this, you got this, you got this. Good vibes. Thanks, Pa. I think that's probably, he probably put emojis on and it came out like that, I guess. I don't know. But thanks for joining, Pa. If you guys have any questions and stuff, pop them in the comments section and we'll get to them, because I'm really enjoying this this chat with Scott. I think this is so important. And the idea of institutions and stuff, I think when people hear that, they think that it's, when they hear institutions, they think that it's, I know that like something like AfriForum is a good model. Okay. It's a sort of a community movement and all of that, started off small and is now large and all of that. And that's essentially how you should start institutions. But guess what, guys? It starts first in your home.
Yep.
And then it starts in your community, your direct community, so your neighbors, your friends across the road, your group of friends, your church, all of that. It all starts in that way. I was thinking about this, Scott. Like I'm not someone who could homeschool. I mean, I don't know if I could. But what I was thinking about doing is approaching people in my church, young adults and stuff my age with young kids and stuff, and saying to them, look, guys, the school system is a sham. They're wanting to teach our children when they're 5 years old about sex, and condoms and even worse, gay sex and stuff as well. And this is coming. It's like by the time my daughter is ready for school, this is going to be the reality,
Yeah.
And I don't want that, I don't want that nonsense in being planted in my 5 or 6 year old daughter's mind. So, my dad says, he says, I like the painting behind Last Supper. Yes, Pa. There we go. So, what I was thinking about doing is approaching some young adults in the church and saying to them, look, guys, why don't we just start a country school?
Yeah.
So, like the idea of a country school is literally just like someone's house or whatever it is, and a couple of the wives or whatever it is, husbands or whatever it is, teach the kids stuff, homeschool the kids, but it's a community effort, And I don't know. I mean, I think that would be quite
you've hit it on the head there, man. Because that's the thing with institutions. We look at AfriForum, who've got like 300,000 members, and they're like putting cases before the United Nations, and like dudes are hotshots, man. And praise God for it. But they literally started with like 3 dudes in a basement, with a cell phone, and it's like, that's not literally how they started, but it's like everything starts with 2, 3, 4 dudes who come together over a beer, over a braai, and say, hey man, I don't want my girl to go to school. Do you want to start a co-op together, a country school together? And then the other 3 dudes are like, yeah, let's think about it. Let's chat to our wives, blah, blah, blah. And, 2 years later, there's now a school with, 4 or 5 kids. And it's like, that is an institution. It's the same with media. You and I right now are individuals who run, actually, you've hit it on the head before I have. You have an institution because it's 3 individuals who have created a institutional name. You're not going by your name. you've created a media house, and this is what, with a lot of my guys who I chat with, it's all about 3 or 4 dudes creating. The individual always loses to the institution. So if one guy goes to the school board, we've seen it with all these videos coming out of American school board town halls, or whatever you call them, meetings, whatever, where like a parent will stand up and be like, this sex education is the devil and it's terrible, and they get laughed out. Like, they get laughed out of the meeting. But if you say, all right, we've lost the school system, or and obviously you run for the board, run for the positions in the institution. But if you can't, you go start your own institution, you start your own school. And now it's not just, John Smith homeschooling. It's now, Country School Pty Limited, or, whatever your institution name is. You now are an institution. You're not an individual anymore. And now you have clout, because when people read news stories, when they read letters to the government or the editor, it's not, oh, John Smith is angry. It's, no, something school board, something media house, something investment group. They don't know it's 3 dudes with a cell phone in a basement. And that's how the clowns are they're so brilliant at institution building. They know that individuals can't move the window, but institutions can move the window. People love institutions. They love credentials. So if you can create a newspaper, like 3 dudes went and created a newspaper, and it's just them in their basement on their laptop creating news pieces. People don't care, because they're like, oh, well, it's the newspaper. A newspaper said it, so it must be true. That's institutionalism. If you can create a neighborhood watch and give it like some fancy name, it's not just a neighborhood watch anymore. Now it's, it's a tax association plus a property, investment group plus a private security company plus a community police forum, like all this stuff. The more credentials you can throw behind a letter, the more credentials you throw behind a complaint. This is what they're brilliant at. The pastor, not even the pastor, because the pastor is always beholden, but like some guy in the church will be like, hey guys, I'm starting a based Bible study, teaching men how to, be based and take authority and be a patriarch in their home. What'll happen is they'll screech and write letters of complaint to the pastor. And not only that, they'll ask like the local newspaper, or like a local, what do you call them? A discernment blogger, or someone, and they'll write letters about, oh, this church is a bloody sexist, misogynistic. And then it's like, no, we're firing Scott. He's no longer part of our church, because it works, right? Complaints and letters and institutional hit pieces, it works. But all you need is 3 dudes who are like, yeah, let's have a media house together. Let's have a school together. Let's have an investment group together. Let's have a community advocacy group together. And very quickly it grows, because people want credentials. They want institutions.
Yeah, that's very, very, very true. And I'm gonna mention over here, because Roman just commented over here. He said from Morning Shot, said just build a homeschooling institution. Yeah, that's perfect. And I watched Roman. Roman did a very interesting video. I believe it released a couple of days ago, about why you should not immigrate from South Africa. But it essentially what the idea was, and it kind of resonated with me, is that our government is so bloody incompetent, so useless. Like, you can literally live the most
uncontrolled.
Sorry?
You're uncontrollable.
Yeah, so you can live the most anarcho-libertarian life that you want to live here. Yep. I mean, you can literally create these institutions right under the government's nose without them knowing anything about it. They don't even exist to anyone else except the members or the people in the communities and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think, honestly, legitimately, it's one of our saving graces. I mean, God, imagine living in Australia, bro. Imagine. I mean, their government is incredibly
competent at control,
and they have basically gone full circle back to their prison days,
prison warden days. Yeah, I saw some guy on Twitter saying like how white people who haven't got out of South Africa, I don't have sympathy for you. It's your fault. You didn't get out in time. And it's like, South Africans who are individualists, yes, the liberal boys will die one by one, alone in a contemptible pity pile, alone. But all the dudes who have community, who have institutional power, who have strong ties, and guys who are ride or die, South African communities who are in the crumbling empire of South Africa are going to come out. They're going to float as the ship continues to go down. These sovereign communities are going to float, and they're going to come out 20 years ahead of the West. You know, America still has another 20 years before it reaches South African style degradation. Australia still has another 20 years before, you know, the breakup of these control mechanisms even looks possible, you know, for these Gen Z boys who are going to be, you know, 30 to 40 years old with their own families, and who you know, are so based before they actually have institutional power to change stuff. So in a way, if you're willing to deal with the crazy chaos now in South Africa and build sovereignty, economic sovereignty, political sovereignty, you know, protection sovereignty now in South Africa, you're going to come ahead. You're going to come out ahead of the rest of us in the Anglosphere.
That's a brilliant point there, Scott. That you know, if you look at it, it's okay to look at it at a micro scale, sort of South Africa as itself and stuff. But if you, it's interesting that you just went and globalized it, and if you look at it at a global scale, and how you know the agendas are real. I mean, the models have already been drawn. The lines in the sand have been drawn. We know where the US is headed. We know where the UK is headed. We know where Australia is headed, or New Zealand. We know where all of those places are headed. What you need to do as the average based oak is find out how you and your community are going to survive this. Like, it's coming. It's coming. There's no getting away from it. It's coming. Like, this is also, again, like something that you mentioned about the libertarians and how they love the idea of escapism, you know, this idea to just sort of run away and you know, disappear. And something also that Ramon mentioned in his video as well is that the most bizarre thing, like I'm well traveled. I've traveled all over the world and stuff. And I have friends everywhere. And something that's so bizarre to them is that South Africans first, and average South Africans first sort of go to is, no, I'm getting out of Dodge, bro. I'm going to Australia, you know, like it's the first thing that they go for. And everywhere else in the world, like, you know, in the US, in the UK, in you know, even a bizarre idea like when my wife's from in Peru, same thing. They don't think about just like ducking. They've got this sort of idea that they can build something in the chaos, and that's very true. Let me just, so Ramon says over here he would love to interview you one of these days on Morning Shot.
That'd be great.
On Twitter, Ramon, just pop him a message on Twitter. He's quite good on Twitter. And then he says, South Africa is the blueprint for decentralized governance. Stick around and set the example for the world. Absolutely.
You know, with that, the big thing in America is the absolute power for control. A lot of guys are still in this mindset of we can win the mechanism of control. You know, we can our guy can get, you know, 2016, the Donald of like, he's our guy. And it's like, well, look how that worked out, you know, because we want someone else to do the hard work for us rather than us building our own institutions, doing the hard yards, you know. And in South Africa, there's no pretense of ever having our guy, you know. I mean, they do. They're like, Ramaphosa is our guy. And it's like, he's not your guy.
I mean, think about it, Scott, how, if we look back on it, okay, so if you look back on 2016 and Trump and all that sort of thing, like, I was like MAGA, bro. Like, you can probably see there's a MAGA cap on the back over there. You know, another one of those memorabilias that I keep around my man cave to remind me of where I came from and stuff. So I was like Trump, bro. I was on the Trump train.
And you both, bro.
You know, I was one of the guys, you know. And the way I look back on it now, I think, how effeminate was I? Like, how much of a woman was I? Like, this is just like, because basically what I was doing is I was hoping, the legit truth is I was hoping this is the guy that's
Yeah.
going to crush all these globalist
And it'll
institutions.
be
The guy that's
rainbows
going,
and butterflies after this.
yeah, exactly. And, and now when I look back on it, I'm like, what a girl I was,
Yeah. And we didn't know. We didn't know about institution building. We didn't know, and so for me, that's been the great, out of disappointment comes hard lessons, and so for us, it's like, oh my gosh, we need to build our own media. Like, the media is not our guys. We need to build our own economy, right? We can't be gatekept from economy anymore. The big corporate HRs are not our guys. We need to build our own governance systems. And this is where in America, the Amish are a phenomenal model. They couldn't care less. They call us the English. They speak German and they keep to themselves. They're a peculiar people. They do not mix with clown world, and they've got it right. They own property. Property ownership is an institution. They own property. They farm their own food. So food systems are an institution. They have complete control of their own food systems, water systems. They school their own children. They have their own media. So number one, gatekeeping of outside media. They don't have TV and social media and stuff. But number two, they control their own media. And by media, I mean the school system, education, academia, whatever you are doing for entertainment and leisure. That's all part of the media domain. And then they solve their own problems. They have their own arbitration. They have their own governance, police, system. They don't go to the outsiders, and we're learning that in America. I mean, we've known it in South Africa. The police aren't your guys. You don't call the police to sort crap out. You don't expect your case to come up in the justice system anytime in the next 3 years. But let me tell you, that's, it's like the justice system is not yours. The police are not yours. The media are not yours. And in America, we're slowly learning that. And it took guys being super disappointed by the MAGA phenomenon. Like, I was pumped for it. Like, wow, this is wonderful. And then you just realize one after another, these institutions aren't our guys. And the incredible black pill, dudes are just like, absolute nihilism and despair. And it's like, no, guys, like, we are now understanding we have to build our own institutions. And it sucks because we're building from zero. We've lost the inheritance of Christendom. We've lost the inheritance of the institutions that used to be ours. And so we have to build from scratch. But therein lies an incredible optimism and incredible legacy of, like, because so many guys are like, I was born in the wrong generation and this sucks. And it's like, no, we are the pioneers. We are the founding fathers of the new civilization, of the new Christendom. And where we can, it's our time to be the guys who swam against the tide, who, in the midst of chaos, started building new islands that are going to float when the rest of the Anglosphere, just keeps sinking lower and lower and lower. The Roman Empire didn't just poof end. Islands of civilization stayed afloat, and the rest of the empire just carried on sinking, over hundreds of years. So South Africa might last another 50 years if the UN props it up and China props it up and the American global homo empire props it up. America might last for another 50 years. Australia might last for another 50 years, just depending on all of these, which bankers and which kind of institutional powers prop them up. And so it becomes this Amish. The Amish are such a white pill. It's like, whoa, like 50 years from now, the Amish are going to be ascendant. They're going to be triple their population. They're going to be triple their property ownership. They're going to be still as based as they are and not touched by the culture. And so the struggle for us English boys is that we think the culture is ours. At least the Afrikaners have a different language, so we need to like learn Latin or something here,
Yeah, that's absolutely true. How's this for a black pill laced white pill? Okay. So 2000, the last US elections, when, and I had conversations with people and stuff about the US institutions, the electoral institutions and all of that sort of stuff. And they're always like, oh no, the institutions are solid, like you can trust them. And, the elections were clearly rigged. I mean, it's quite obvious. But anyway, and everyone's like, yeah, no, trust the institutions. The institutions have got this, and then Biden becomes president. Okay, so how's this for a black pill? Okay, the black pill is that the institutions are dead. Like they are dead. They literally stole the presidency, clear as day.
Daylight. Yep.
Dead. Yeah, they lied. Okay, it's dead. Okay, and now you see this sort of trend now of people starting to actually realize, hang on, like you said, these institutions aren't ours. Now what are we going to do? Well, the logical thing is build your own institutions, and that's what's going to happen. So I just want to jump into the comments over here. Old Russ Lamberti, how's it, Russ? Good to have you here. Said institution building is hard, requires hard work, energy, and relationship building. Isolating is more comfortable and easy. So institution building requires dying to self, sacrificial mindset.
Yeah, absolutely.
Duty. Absolutely, yeah, the call to duty. And then what else did he say here? More wise words by Russ. He says institutions create strength, structure, and security. In short, institutions are able to marshal and carry power. They are structures ready and able and with capacity for action.
This reminds me of a quote by there's a chap, I think it's called O'Sullivan's Law. He was a political commentator or philosopher or whatever, but he said any institution that is not explicitly right-wing in its founding, in its operation, will always drift leftward. And that's what we've seen with many institutions, And so I think, again, we're learning the hard lessons of like, okay, to be explicit in explaining the cultural values of our institutions so that they cannot be co-opted or subverted. That they're so easy, and I think we're seeing that with democracy. Like democracy is a tool for subversion, because it's just, you can promise free t-shirts and loaves of bread and TVs, and now you can change constitution, and you can change the policies. And this is kind of the leaning out of individualism, libertarianism, or classic liberalism, where we don't trust democracy. We don't trust the masses, and it's like, oh, Scott, you elitist bastard, like who do you think you are? And it's like, no, like I'm not saying to trust me either. I'm just saying to build things on biblical foundations. You can literally build. That's what the US Constitution was supposed to be, was this incredible constitution on biblical premises. However, it had the virus of republicanism attached to it, where you could vote to change certain policies or certain values. And so, of course, well, you just change the electorate, or you buy the electorate, and so we're seeing that with institutions. I think this romance of a democratically elected institution, like, all right, guys, we're going to have a media house and we're all going to vote on how things happen. And it's like, I think we're past that now. Now it's a few strong guys who are friends with each other. And it's like, hey, Scott, I trust you, brother. Like, we have trust. You are the king now. You are the captain now of this ship. And, this sort of fascism or authoritarianism, it's scary to the clowns, because they realize their main tool of taking over institutions is through democracy. It's through everybody's equal honor. Everyone has a voice. Everyone has a say. And we're coming along and be like, no, not everyone has a say. Sorry. Not sorry.
Yeah. But it's interesting that you mentioned that, because language is key as well. And, it's so bizarre. Like I mentioned, I made a post on Facebook today saying that the word communitarianism is one that's very, very rarely used in social discourse and that sort of thing. And that's, it'll be used in philosophy and that sort of thing, but it's never used in conversation. And I said, just watch. It's going to become a very popular word soon. Okay. And whether it's going to become popular and or unpopular, like this is the thing. And watch it become another one of those blunt force words that they use to beat us to death with. You know what I mean? This is the thing: is the Christian understanding of equality, okay, as a word, okay, is not what the word equality or how the word equality is used anywhere outside in media now. I mean, even for example, like this is a prime example. I'm not afraid of the word the greater good or the phrase the greater good, because I understand that there is a Christian validity behind the term the greater good.
And there are boundaries, Christian boundaries of who that good is.
Exactly. And the answerable boundaries, so answerable to God kind of thing, okay? And within those boundaries. But the greater good nowadays, like libertarians hate it because they think it's a communist thing. The communists love it because they also think it's a communist
thing. You can
thing.
apply it to everything. There's no boundaries stopping who this encompasses.
You understand? So that's just a phrase. So that this is how language is so incredibly important.
Yep.
And it's interesting that you said also, like us English oaks, we think we've got the language, but our language is globo homo. Like our language is the globo homo language.
Yeah.
So the Afrikaans oaks have got a foot in the door already because they've got Afrikaans,
Yeah.
And they've got even a better foot in the door because it's like an obscure, tiny little niche language, kind of probably like the Amish probably they speak German, but it's probably like
dialect.
Their own German dialect, you know what I mean? And that's a massive foot in the door now with the globalization of everything around.
There has to be some form of peculiarity of exclusivity to, because that's it. If you love everyone, you love no one. If every woman is your wife, no woman is your wife. There has to be some form of exclusionary tribalism when it comes to institution building, because an institution is a tool of service. It's a tool, a family. If you look at the family as an institution, it's a tool of service to your children and your wife. Patriarchy is the smallest building block. The family is the smallest institution of society. So when people come and say like, oh, but there's, what about this woman across the street, and what about this child in Somalia with a fly on his lip? And it's like, yes, if I am able, if I have luxury of resource, maybe I will help. But first, there's a checklist that I go down. First, it's my wife. Then it's my children. Then it's my brother's wife. Then it's my brother's children. Then it's my neighbor's wives. Then it's my neighbor's children. Then it's all the wives and children of my church. Then it's all the wives and children of my greater tribe, my diaspora, who all agree with, the guys I would like to live with. So for instance, I would consider you part of my tribe. We don't live together, but we would do life alongside each other. So we are a diaspora together. Then I will consider helping the child in Somalia and by that, I don't have any resources. I'm sorry. I don't have resources to go and help at that scale, at that greater good. And that's where these kind of exclusionary boundaries that God has put in place are very, very offensive to the liberal mind. Because what do you mean you have a duty to your wife before other women? What do you mean you have a duty to your children before other children? What do you mean you have a duty to your immediate neighbor before other neighborhoods? And this is this kind of scale of authority that we are returning to. That is very offensive. That's where, calls of racist and calls of misogynist and calls of, whatever disparaging slur they want to throw at you, because you're not going to look after them anymore. You're not going to be parasitized by a global good anymore.
And especially us Anglos, like, the problem is us Anglo oaks, like, we're not allowed to have in-group preference, not because we're Anglos or whatever, but we're not allowed to have in-group preference because other Anglos don't allow us to do it.
Yeah.
Like, this is the worst part. Like, how separated are we from community when our own people are doing this to us?
Yeah.
Like, that's.
And we don't know what community is, because that's it. If everybody is my community, if the whole world is my community, then we don't know what community is. And that's why, that is the huge psyop for us of like, when you arrive at church, like there is a healthy in-group of like, hey guys, the 100 people in this church or the 200 people in this church, however big your church is, 20 people, whatever, however big your church is. Hey guys, our first ministry is to everybody in this church. Let's take care of the widows in this church. Let's take care of the orphans in this church. Let's support the businesses in this church. Let's buy property together in this church. Let's first love our physical, actual, real neighbors. And then after that, all right, let's now go a step out.
Yeah, the idea that the Christian idea of love thy neighbor is like, hey,
universal.
love like whatever, Vladimir in Russia kind of thing. Like,
and so what happens is you end up sending $50 a month to Vladimir in Russia, and you drive into church, and you can see there's some poor person in your church who's not doing well, and you're like, yeah, sorry man, I gave my last $50 to Vladimir in Russia, so my guilt is free. My guilt is my obligation of duty is appeased. And so we can't love the guy in front of us because we're free from that duty of like, well, some guy in Russia will come and love this guy, so it's off of my hands. It's like, sorry, buddy, like there's very real duty whereby like if you see a problem, you fix it within your own authority. So in your own family, if you see a problem, you fix it. In your own community, if you see a problem and you have the right authorities with which to fix it or permissions to fix it, you fix it. You don't be a victim, and pray, oh, please, UN, please send money and help my community. It's like, no, man, it's up to you. It's up to you to fix the problems in your community. And this is where things get really, really mixed up with the equality crowd. They're like, how dare these farmers band together and have better home defense and have better armed security and have better economic in-group and it's like, no, good on them. Like they are having in-group with their group, and only from that place of strength they can then choose who to help beyond that. But you have no claim on their community. You have no right and obligation to have what they have with duty and responsibility worked to get, and that's this whole thing of like, we were saying, just for instance, if you go to Somalia and you now try and help the Somalians, it's like, do they have their own authority systems? Like, who are their husbands? Who are their fathers? Who are their community leaders? Who are their politicians? Why aren't they looking after their own people in place? And from a missionary perspective, sure, maybe you have a call of God to go there, but you're not going there to replace their authority systems. You're going there to disciple their authority systems. So at the end of my 20 or 30 years here, there will be Somalian pastors, Somalian fathers, Somalian economy leaders, Somalian politicians who are worshiping the Lord and leading their own people.
That's how it always used to be. That's how mission work always used to be. It was never the idea of, we're going to go there. Honestly, that weird idea of mission work and stuff came a lot from the sort of white man's burden type.
Yeah, it's Anglo-empiricism through Bible and rifle.
Pretty much, yeah. And that's vitally, I don't know. I look, I think I want to just sort of swing back into normies now and talk.
I was ranting, forgive me.
No, it's brilliant based proper stuff. So we were talking about before we went on the stream, Scott. We've been going for an hour and 14 minutes. We'll go for about another 15 minutes if you've got time. So we were talking about bread and circus and how that is essentially these institutions' way to create normies. So the idea of bread and circus, the ancient Roman idea that as long as people are fed and entertained, they will just, go along and won't argue and won't rise up and won't cause any problems and that sort of thing. So the Romans, in Rome, they kept their people fed and they kept them entertained. Okay. And that's pretty much what the institutions of today are doing. And it's interesting, like we were chatting earlier, that if you analyze how we live today and how the early Christians lived in Rome, we're going that way. And we're in Rome now, right? Like Rome 2.0. And that's another way of how to sort of spot a normie as well? Is it someone is just sort of surrounded and flooded in, pop culture and media?
Consumerism.
Yeah, consumerism is a massive one as well. Those people that are fascinated by celebrities and all of this other nonsense.
Yeah.
I mean, a guy told me, sent something to me, one of my work colleagues or something, and it was some girl singer, Latin girl, Latin name or something. Anyway, I've forgotten her name, but he sent it to me, and I was like, "Who is this?" And he was like shocked. He was like, "How do you not know who this is?" And I was like, "I don't know. I've never heard of her because I don't listen to the radio. I listen to like old school, like 1990s grunge and stuff, like stuff that I like. I'm not going to turn the radio on to get my music, you know what I mean? Or I listen to gospel music or hymns, and stuff, and that's it. And these oaks are shocked by it. Like, am I that obscure that they're shocked by it? Think about that. Are they actually shocked that I don't know this celebrity? That's how ingrained it is.
Yeah, and that's it. Because what are you masking? What are you masking by bread and circuses? And for us today, it's opioids, it's computer games, it's porn, it's even promoted degeneracy. Because I think it's like, oh, we can get away with sleeping around, we can get away with homosexuality, we can get away with transgenderism or whatever your thing is. But what are all of these? Put it this way: what is hypersexuality? Because I think they had hypersexuality in Rome, they had hypersexuality in Weimar. What is, it's kind of like the canary in the coal mine for the decadence phase of the cycle of empires is public degeneracy, public hypersexuality. And so it's masking something, and it's the masculine energy. It's draining masculine energy into sinks, into sinkholes, instead, because men are what change. It's so the next phase. So an empire dies in decadence. Decadence is the last phase. It's the good times of that four times meme. And it's the young men with this masculine energy, with this urge to break out and pioneer or conquer or expel, that then re-kickstart the cycle again into the first phase of empire or of civilization, which is pioneer and conquest. That's the next first phase, right? So we are teetering on the brink there between decadence, which I say in South Africa, South Africa really is the decadence. Have you got me there? There we go.
Yeah.
The decadence phase is coming to an end in South Africa. And a lot of guys are like, oh, Scott, South Africa, we've never had decadence. And it's like, no. Like comparably for the rest of Africa, comparably for the rest of history, South Africa has had huge decadence. And we're coming to the end of that now. America is still, like I said, 20 to 50 years away from the decadence cycle, finally kind of eking, electricity shut off and the last one out, please close the door. And we are that masculine surge of like, all right, let's go pioneer, let's go conquer, and I don't know if any of you guys have read that book by Bronze Age Pervert, which is the Bronze Age mindset, but he's basically just a grug poster who lays out kind of he's not a Christian, but he lays out this framework for the answer. The antidote to nihilism and decadence is adventure and exploration and conquering. And from a Christian point of view, you're like, yeah, I can see that. We just want righteous men to do that. We want men who bear the cross of Christ to go and be conquistadors and crusaders. Like, we want that masculine energy again, that and before we get blocked for Fed posting here or whatever, we're not saying go to the Capitol and burn stuff down. We're not saying go flesh and blood murder normies. But we are saying the masculine energy of like, this far and no further, I'm not going to comply. The masculine energy of I will go and build 3 or 4 man institutions and become sovereign from this crumbling empire. that masculine energy on a huge part has been satiated by computer games, by sugar, by opioids, by hypersexuality.
So that's very interesting that you mentioned that, Scott, because I was watching a Catholic YouTuber. His name's Matt Frad. Okay, and he interviewed a guy who started a boys' school in the States. It's a Catholic boys' school, and but like old school, hey, like proper based male teachers, like
full male space,
full male space. Okay, no cell phones, no iPads,
awesome.
nothing allowed. Daily masses, prayers throughout the day. But anyway, so what this guy was saying is now this is a guy that was a professor at a university, and he was submersed in the modern education system. Okay. And something that he noticed was amongst his male students was exactly what you just said. The sapping out, the draining of masculinity. And every year, a new class that came in, every year the men were progressively weaker, progressively less manly, progressively more simpy and wet raggy, and just damp and slop. You know what I mean? And what this guy said is what he realized through reading, and because he's a Catholic, he's a Christian, and through reading his Bible and understanding these things, is that all of a man's masculinity comes from conquest and adventure. All of it comes from exploring, taking risks, breaking boundaries, conquering, for
danger.
That's where it comes from. And he says that what video games do is it's another form of escapism. Okay, where that's why video games are so much more popular amongst males.
Yeah,
because it's the idea of an adventure.
Yeah,
it's like I can go on this adventure and play this character
and gain honor in the game.
Yeah, and gain honor in the game and be this adventurer. Okay, and that gives them the little fix of dopamine and stuff. But it's like it's like
empty.
Like a spastic form of it. It's empty and it's hollow. There's no physicality in it. There's no wind blowing in your ears. There's no,
and that's all of us, because what are the games that attracted me? I would put ridiculous hours into Rome Total War, ridiculous into like Mountain Blade. So these are all like conquest kind of games. And then even on a more practical level, I would put hours into like FIFA or rugby, like managing teams. And it's like, why? What is the tickle? What is the appetite I'm tickling? And it's like, no, go out and do it in the real world. Like go out and coach a real team. Go out and build real institutions. Because like Rome, it's basically institution building and territory taking. Mountain Blade is team building and fighting and institution building. Alliances, politics, diplomacy. And it's like, go do it in real life. And we're like, but I can't pick up a sword and go kill a guy. It's like, no, what are the themes that it represents, And it's like, or I'm not a professional rugby player. It's like, do it on your local level. Can you go down to the local club and help out at the local rugby club? You're now doing it rather than watching other people do it or pretend doing it.
And you get a massive rush out of it. Like it literally invigorates you. Like you will, I promise you, after doing that, the next day you do it, you'll get in your car, drive to work or whatever it is, and the world will look different.
Yeah.
I promise you.
And that's a huge thing as well as time compression. That's the huge draw of video games. It's like I can have a 20-year coaching career in 4 days. And that's the big test for us, is a test of resolve, of patience. Can we do the long game? Those AfriForum guys, like I don't know how long AfriForum's been going for now, but they didn't overnight have success. It took day after day after day of doing the thing, And I think that's a lot of guys, like we're learning resolve now.
Yeah, that's the thing. And, it's not like, and it's interesting again that you mentioned AfriForum because, there's those oaks out there, like use them as your mentors, like
Yeah.
model your stuff around them. There's plenty of this out there,
Yeah.
read adventure books. I mean, I don't know if you ever read John Ross, the book of John Ross about the little, I'll tell you what, I remember as a kid, my mom bought me, it was a book. So it was John Ross, the book, and it came with a tape. Okay. And you'd like play the tape, and the tape would have like sounds of like the beach and stuff, and you'd read
Setting
it.
the
And
scene.
like a boat, and then it'd have like the creaking of the sails. And it was phenomenal. It was
That's
amazing.
awesome.
It was a adventure.
Yeah.
And, uh, read these adventure books, find out about how, these oaks went about conquering and then learn from them. And like AfriForum, prime example. I'm actually having Ernst on sometime either this week or next week. Like I mentioned,
Awesome.
He's coming on to talk about big family dynamics. What a based man with his massive family, and how you go about giving a middle finger to the globo homos that say having too many children is irresponsible. Anyway, I just want to jump into the comments before we shut off here, Scott. Russ says, individualism culture can never create or sustain meaningful institutions. Only a multi-generational culture can. Love of people and place is essential. Actual people, actual geographies. Yes, and interestingly enough, Russell and Bertie was one of the first sort of internet oaks that I befriended on the internet, that has become a actual friend, a real life friend, who comes and braais at my house and hangs out and stuff, a real oak, Rob said, this is quite interesting. I read this comment earlier on. He said, Christians would do well to look back to the early church and for how they behaved in a hostile empire.
Yeah.
There's a lot of value in good people working clandestinely. Yeah, no, I agree 100%. We did kind of touch on that as well in the talk. Maybe you'll get this reference. I don't. I'm not
Lord of the
really
Rings.
a Lord of the Rings guy, but it says Crypsis is an armor against the eye of Sauron. I don't know what Crypsis is, but I don't.
Look at that's unread, stinky 80 IQs.
Yeah, I suppose so. Anyway, I think that's about it. I think we've gone for basically an hour and a half. Really, really, really enjoyed this chat,
Shot,
Scott.
man.
Thanks so much for coming. Do you want to do a little plug and tell everyone where to find you and stuff?
Yeah, appreciate it, bro.
Oh, lost you there, but you there, Scott?
All right, you got me there?
Yeah, you back, yeah.
All right, yeah. So I've been putting all my live streams onto Apple and Spotify podcasts. So you can find me on podcasts by typing in Courage My Lads or just Scott Tungay, I'm sure. So that's pretty exciting. And then on Twitter at Courage My Lads, and then YouTube, Scott Tungay. And then my wife and I have a YouTube channel together, Scott and Kelly. So that we're just talking a lot into home economy and changing the culture, just as far as giving a positive vision to youngsters.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Focusing on the family and the microeconomics and stuff, which is brilliant. Very, very, very important. Anyway, thank you so much, Scott. Guys, remember to like, subscribe, go and check out Scott's totally based Twitter and all of his channels and stuff. Thank you so much for joining. Stay reactionary out there because God wills it.
God wills it.